Welcome back to All Change. Last week we heard Ross's horrendous yet incredible story. It was an intense week.
I got a phone call. Something had happened at Michael's unit. Michael had been murdered along with 2 of his students, and that's when our world fell apart.
The men arrived again this week. 9 men, 3 volunteers, 2 hours and 1 circle. I was late joining the session as I had to undergo duress training. Basically, this is an alarm which you could seem to set off an infinite number of ways. One of which, as I would later find out, was tilting to 90 degrees. Apparently in case I'd been, punched unconscious. On entering the room, it did not look like any of these men would be knocking me out. Last week had taken its toll. Many men were missing this week. However, for the remaining 9, this week we delved into taking responsibility. First, let's meet Nathan. Nathan did this course, known as the Sycamore Tree course, several years ago whilst in prison.
I wasn't really sure what to expect. I wasn't really sure what the course was about. I guess going to the course just reinforced my thinking was how I have affected people in a negative way, and the ripple effect it's caused through their families, losing their children, losing their partners, housing, ending up on the street, that sort of thing. It hurts inside to know that I've done that. But from now, I just try and move forward and I try and get back to the community now.
Admitting failure is required in order to take responsibility. Last week we heard Tim wrestling with whether he was truly responsible for his crime, as he was under the influence of drugs at the time. He is one of the 5 who's not here this week, so maybe it was too much for him. I also want to revisit Sam's confusing response to Ross's story last week. Thank you, I understand. I feel like I'm starting to get used to Sam a little bit more now. He's often there, sat rocks back on his chair with this kind of glazed over look. But it's not until he starts speaking you realise you've been deceived. This week, the group are talking about the consequences of their own crime on their victims, as well as how they think their victims feel. Sam never thought about the consequences of his crime on victims, but that all changed when he became a victim. Sam continued. His brother, his closest friend, was murdered. And after his initial reaction of anger, he felt the helplessness of being a victim. Sam was worried. He didn't want any more victims, but everything told him that is what would happen. His mum would tell him he's selfish, society would tell him that he would end up back in prison, and his brain only really knew a system of violence. He wasn't alone in sharing this fear. It seems the line between victim and criminal isn't so clear cut. Each man has his own story of being a victim also.
Growing up, I always remember even the ads on TV, it was you do the crime and do the time, I did the crime, I took responsibility for it. I've served my time. I'm on my parole now, so I'm still paying the consequences from it. I'll get through this and soldier on, I think. Yeah.
But, and it's an important but, this is a story requiring empathy, not sympathy. It acknowledges there are reasons we are the way we are, but there are only excuses why we stay that way. I leave the prison after another thought-provoking week, surrounded by dogs as the prison went into lockdown. So, join me next Thursday for week 4 of All Change.